What's going on, you bunch of heathens? Today we are checking out Not What You Think. Honestly, one of my favorite fucking YouTube channels. I love their shorts. I love this dude. He's fucking amazing. I love watching his shit. Today we are watching I'm sure it's supposed to be the Japanese Navy's weird, not Japanese Navy's weird, but either way, I'm excited. I actually haven't seen I got hooked on him from his shorts. Haven't seen a lot of his shorts recently, but I'm already going to instantly give it a fucking like because I love his shit. He's actually really fucking cool. Definitely check him out. I'll remind you at the end as well, but definitely check him out, at least for the shorts. Also, I'm in a new model. This is my possessed doll model. Thought I'd give that throw that out there, but either way, let's jump straight into this.
This is not an aircraft carrier.
Oh, hold on. Let me turn you up. All right, let's restart it.
This is not an aircraft carrier, and this is a helicopter. According to the Japanese, Izumo is a helicopter-carrying destroyer.
Yeah, I did know about kind of this, I want to say. Not particularly, but I do know that the Japanese self-defense force has a weird classification for a bunch of shit. Like, say, the what's it called? Their tanks aren't actually tanks and stuff like that. Like, they have to have they have to interpret their laws in very specific ways. You know what I mean?
Not a carrier. Why else would Izumo be moving side by side with two other destroyers? Following that classification logic, I guess Yamato was also a patrol boat. Joking aside, while the Japanese Navy is one of the most powerful in the world, officially,
yeah,
Japan
it actually is
doesn't
fairly
even have a
powerful.
navy. That's because they're not allowed to have a military altogether. Why? Well, in a nutshell, once upon a time, Japan attacked the United States, which in turn...
Although I do believe recently they have been in talks with the US at least about actually reinstating an actual military at this point due to concerns with China. I believe
them back twice and sunk most of the Imperial Japanese Navy by 1945, which led to their surrender.
Don't touch our boats.
The victorious Americans then pronounced no more military for the Japanese folks. However, they did allow Japan to have a self-defense force, which was more of a police force, given that it wasn't allowed to operate on foreign soil. So today, the Japanese police force...
But I may be wrong, but didn't they send like a quote-unquote force to like Iraq or Afghanistan? I can't remember, but I thought they might have. I'm not positive, though. Maybe they didn't. I thought they might have, though.
Consists of 3 branches that together form the Japan Self-Defense Force, or JSDF. But why Japan is not allowed to have aircraft carriers, and how the Japanese tricked the system to get them built. Why the Izumo carriers are handicapped and currently remain useless. And
it's very loose interpretation.
It's not what you think. Ever since the formation of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, or JMSDF, they've always wanted to acquire aircraft carriers. But this was impossible due to the political turmoil over the Japanese constitution, which prohibited offensive weapons such as aircraft carriers. Specifically, the issue lies within Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which was drafted by Americans. Article 9 renounces the right of war and prohibits Japan...
Yep, which has been determined... I remember there's someone who I follow on Twitter who talks about who lives in Japan, who's like Japanese native, who talks about like the political sphere of Japan. And I want to say, I forget when this happened. This was around the time that the coup in Korea was happening, I want to say. I think I found him just before then. and he was doing like a very basic rundown because he had gotten a bunch of followers on Twitter because of the algorithm. He was talking about how, and it was this guy along with I think a couple of YouTube videos on people from there, or at least knowledgeable about it, on how it was very loose interpretation, and they were in the works to actually expand their budget for the JSDF slash actually implementing a real military instead of the self-defense force. I want to say, I'm not positive though. I could be completely off.
From maintaining land, sea, and air forces. Back in the 1980s, Japanese politicians said absolutely no to the aircraft carriers, but as a compromise agreed that the JMSDF could acquire helicopter carriers.
Which, can I just say, I love the fact that they said absolutely not to aircraft carriers because they didn't want to rehash the old Imperial Navy and whatnot. But at the same time, politicians, even Japan now, still refuse to admit the war crimes that Japan committed during World War II. And they did commit them. And some of them were worse, if were on the par, if not worse, than the Germans did. But it wasn't until very recently, I want to say, that Japan even acknowledged any of them. And even then, I'm not even sure which ones.
Of course, that wasn't enough, and the JMSDF kept pressuring the government to supplement their helicopter carriers with Harrier jets. However, this
God, I love the Harrier
due to the political considerations and opposition from the US Navy. As a result, instead of getting Harriers, the JMSDF decided to acquire Aegis destroyers.
Aegis,
but the goal
God, I
of
fucking
having
love
aircraft
those.
carriers never died.
No, why would they die?
Knowing that it would be impossible to sell an aircraft carrier to the politicians,
God, only
in the
3 minutes in,
2000s,
I've already
the
paused quite a
JMSDF
bit.
designed the Izumo class as a carrier, but sold it as a helicopter-carrying destroyer to the politicians, who swallowed the bait. The fact
It's
that the
very
Izumo
loose
class
interpretation
was designed with
nowadays.
the possibility of operating fixed-wing aircraft from early on was kept a secret, because everyone knew that having
was it,
aircraft
though?
carriers broke the Article 9 of the Constitution. The goal of the JMSDF was to wait.
From what I know about the situation, I don't think it was actually hidden. It was more so politicians were eventually convinced that under the loose interpretation with consultation to the US because of the treaties and whatnot, that it was allowed. It's all very loosely based and very loose interpretation.
For the right moment to pressure
I'm not going to bring that up
Japanese
again so far,
to allow
for
the
a while,
conversion of the
at
Izumo
least.
to an aircraft carrier. Of course, from the start, critics saw the Izumo class for what it really was, calling the ship attack aircraft carriers. Not surprisingly,
What
the
does that
loudest
mean?
critic was the communist China, calling it
Of
an aircraft
course.
carrier in disguise.
China,
To be
don't act
clear,
like you're so
Japan
innocent.
wasn't trying to fool other countries. I mean, this is clearly not a destroyer. They were just finding ways to trick their own government into letting them build certain types of ships. We'll get into the details of this in a little bit. The Izumo-class helicopter-carrying destroyers are currently the largest ships in the JMSDF, with their primary mission being anti-submarine warfare.
Yeah,
This
it would
is why
have to be.
each ship of the class is equipped with 7 anti-submarine warfare helicopters and 2 search and rescue helicopters. But as we alluded earlier, the Izumo class was
By the way, because I love anime, obviously, because I play an anime character on the internet, can you recommend any anime that has to deal with like the JSDF and whatnot? I've watched Gate, not the biggest fan of it. I've read, I forget what it was called, but the manga had to deal with the entire country of Japan getting transported. That was a pretty fun one. But honestly, when it comes to this, it's either Tanya the Evil, where it's not even necessarily that. It's an isekai, but not. Kind of like it's very vaguely like Gate, but not particularly. Really good. Tanya the Evil, I think, is overall my favorite anime, other than Frieren. But when it comes to stuff like Gate, incredibly hard to find anime for it, if any. But manga wise, there was one where it was a JSDF soldier who got isekai'd with his gear. That was really a interesting read. And then other than that, reading fan fiction of Gate, because it's so big in the West, fan fiction authors wrote stuff for it. But mainly because the author of Gate is very anti-Western. It showed more of a perspective on if I want to say a more realistic approach if the US military was actually involved with it, which was pretty fun. But yeah, if you have any recommendations like that, I'd love to watch them.
Wasn't really built to chase submarines.
Let's continue.
All a cover-up. And this really shows, because the ships lack the defensive weapon systems that are present on the preceding Hyuga-class ships. Hyuga-class helicopter destroyers are the true submarine hunters, since the two...
By the way, can I just say, the entire, look of these are very American. Like, the number stenciling and everything, the colors as well. They are very American looking. Like, you'll see some ships from other countries where it's like, yeah, no, that's not American. This could be, if you didn't have these flags, they could be
ships in the class
mistaken as American.
Have 16 Mark 41 VLS cells, which can launch both anti-air and anti-submarine missiles.
Dope.
Additionally, the Hyuga-class ships are equipped with 2 torpedo tubes. Since the Izumo class was always meant to be an aircraft carrier, those weapon systems were never installed on it. The objective of the class was to carry up to 28 aircraft, while the escort ships in the carrier strike group would take care of launching torpedoes and missiles. Furthermore, the Izumo class has a minimum amount of self-defense weapons, such as 2 Phalanx Seawiz and 2 Sea-Rams. The position of one Phalanx Seawiz is questionable,
not a lot,
to
is
say
it?
the least. The ship has a 25-bed hospital, and the hangar is 3 stories high, or 24 feet tall, with the ability to store up to 14 SH-60K helicopters. Usually, all aircraft are stored inside hangars to protect them from the salty sea breeze spray, which is extremely corrosive. The upper deck is a full-length flight deck, measuring 803 feet in length and 124 feet in width, which is...
That is something I will give, especially the 2 countries that very much come to mind, the JSDF, or Japan, or countries I say, Japan and Korea are 2 countries I will always give their military members, especially those who volunteer when it comes to Korea, their props, and hats off to them, because they do not get a whole lot of, in America. It's very strange to me because I'm American, of where it's yeah, no, we respect our service members a majority of the time. It's, oh, thank you for your service and whatnot. From what I've seen in Korea, that's not really a thing because it's mandatory service. In Japan, I can't remember whether it was Japan or Korea. It may be more so both or just Korea. I can't remember. But it's basically oh, if you join the military and you stay in for a long time, like a career service member or whatnot, you're seen as someone who doesn't really doesn't contribute to society all that much. Like, you have nothing else to do, weirdly enough. Whereas in America, if you're a career, like, if you're captain all the way up to whatever it'd be, like, if you're military, or even if you're NCO, if you're not commissioned, if you make a career out of it, it is considered worth your time and people will respect you for it. Weirdly enough, not so much other countries, which I find absolutely strange to my American brain. Like, let me know, if you're from another country, how you treat your veterans, your military veterans, you know? So I would love to know from you guys, because it is very strange to my American sensibilities to not, like, appreciate them.
Which is slightly smaller than the flight deck on the Wasp-class amphibious assault ships, which is 840 feet in length and 140 feet in width. Unlike American supercarriers or the French Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, the Izumo class is not nuclear-powered, but is instead conventionally powered by 4 gas turbines that provide enough power to achieve a speed of 30 knots.
Nuclear aircraft carriers,
the first
baby.
ship in the
Let's
class
go.
was commissioned on March 25th, 2015, and the second carrier was commissioned 2 years after. The name of the second Izumo-class carrier was originally debated to be Nagato, but that idea was shot down by politicians early on in order to not stir things up overseas. That's because the Nagato battleship killed lots of Americans in World War II. So instead, they named...
I gotta say, I don't think Americans really would have cared. Like, I really don't think so. The Kaga, so it's now the Kaga. I honestly don't think Americans really would have cared if you named it the Nagato. Although personally, I wouldn't really have cared. It's like whatever to me, and I'm into the military, but some people may have cared. I don't know. Good. I mean, I guess good on y'all for, like, being like, no, we don't want any kind of trouble, you know? So I guess good on y'all for that.
her Kaga as a reference to a Japanese province. But Kaga was also an aircraft carrier built for the Imperial Japanese Navy during World War II. It's not hard to imagine that one day in the future,
so what was the
USS
point
Enterprise,
then?
which is currently under construction, would end up scheduled to sail along JS Kaga together, and they'll probably meet up at Midway, you know?
That you tell anyone from like World War II or the Korean War about that, they think you're fucking insane. That is really cool, though. I also really like the fact that the Enterprise is still a fucking thing. God, what was the fucking show on the History Channel that it showed, like, famous naval battles of World War II or whatever? And it did really weird, like, I want to say crappy CG. And it always featured the Enterprise, I want to say. I can't remember what it was, but it was super fucking interesting. My brother always recorded it, and I loved that show. I wish I could remember what it was called, but I loved watching that show. That show was so interesting.
As an aircraft carrier, the Izumo class is currently useless. That's because Japan doesn't own any aircraft capable of short takeoff and vertical landing. Back in 2019, Japan ordered 42 patrol planes. Yes, 42 F-35Bs. However, it will be a while before they receive them. In fact, the batch of the first 6 was supposed to be delivered in March 2025. But then, whose fighter jets are these, operating from Japanese flat tops? Since it won't be until 2030 or so before Japan receives all fighter jets and achieve initial operational capability, the JMSDF has not ruled out the use of their carriers by their allies in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, no, my whole thought process was either they're on loan to them until theirs arrive, or it's basically training them for whenever they get theirs from the US. Okay, that makes sense.
So for the first time in 75 years, fighter jets are operating off of Japanese flat tops by none other than the US Marine pilots to test operational feasibility in the meantime. Outside of operations testing, Japan
That's pretty
does
fucking
two more
cool.
things with its aircraft-less carriers. Participate in lots of photo exercises and take people on joyrides. That's right, the Japanese frequently use carriers' elevators to entertain foreign leaders as they take them on rides up and down.
Doesn't surprise me.
In fact, frequently the ride
Doesn't surprise me, and also at the same time, my thought process is we're not getting any other use out of them. Might as well use them for fucking something.
rides are even open to the public, who absolutely love them. Speaking of elevators, the Izumo class has two elevators, one at the fore middle and one aft right. The deckside elevators are more susceptible to the effects of waves on small ships and are an obstacle when mooring alongside a quay. But the advantage is that they can transport large aircraft, ones that are larger than the
God knows, before I fucking forget, God knows if I ever went to Japan, I would love to tour some of these. To be fair, I would love to tour a lot of war museums. But yeah, I would if I had the opportunity to do that, I totally would. That is very much so up my alley. I love that kind of shit.
the elevator itself. We should note that Izumo carriers are handicapped by not having ski jumps or catapults. A ski jump, just like the ones on the Royal Navy's Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carriers, allows aircraft to take off with more weight, which translates to more fuel and weapons. The design of both ships allows for the addition of the ski jump, but there are no immediate plans to do that. You might be wondering how the Japanese carriers compare to the ones around the world. The
I'd
Izumo
assume they're
class
small.
carry up to 28 aircraft and weighs 26,000 tons at full displacement. Meanwhile, the Italian light aircraft carrier Cavour weighs 30,000 tons and can carry up to 30 aircraft. The Spanish Navy's light carrier Juan Carlos weighs 26,000 tons and can carry up to 25 aircraft. Compared to the American supercarriers that can carry up to 90 aircraft, Izumo
I forgot how small other countries' naval aircraft carriers are. So they're naming off 28, 25 aircraft, and I'm just sitting here like, it seems like so little. Because I know vaguely how much, like, I didn't know it was actually like 90, but I knew it was a lot. I'm just thinking, damn, that seems like very small amount of aircraft to you know, have for an aircraft carrier, especially an American aircraft carrier that is like it is a floating city, you know. And then it's like, oh, 28, 25, 90. I love our defense budget.
is quarter of their size, and roughly 60% of the size of the America-class amphibious assault ships that can carry in excess of 22 aircraft.
Damn. Even our assault. Damn, even these are bigger than those? Is that what he said?
And roughly 60% of the size of the America-class amphibious assault ships that can carry in excess of 22 aircraft.
Damn. So even our tiny bitches
now,
carry more than
JS
that.
Kaga is actually larger than Izumo, given that it weighs 27,000 tons, because its flight deck was converted to the rectangular shape. But why is the rectangular shape needed?
Flatter area for the helicopters. I would assume because it's not needed to have the actual anything. I don't remember what I was going to say, but because it's made for quote unquote helicopters. Also, I kind of want to know, in the event that they decide to, how long would it take to convert these to have? Because I don't think they would do the ramps. I wouldn't think. So how long would it take to fit them with the catapults?
Original configuration.
That's kind of what I want to know.
The Izumo-class helicopter destroyers were not suitable for operation of the F-35Bs. To solve this issue, a two-stage conversion process was established. During the first stage, the flight deck was strengthened against the heat generated by the F-35B's exhaust.
It would need to be, yes.
Additionally, a yellow centerline on the deck was also added for F-35B's landing and takeoffs.
Smart. Yet
Finally,
again.
the necessary power supply equipment had to be installed. While those modifications were
For a third time,
sufficient
that
to
makes
operate
sense.
F-35Bs, the carrier flight deck operations remained far from ideal. In October 2021, American Marine Corps F-35Bs successfully conducted landings and takeoffs from the Izumo destroyer. But they found a problem.
Uh-oh. What is it?
Izumo's bow is trapezoid-shaped, meaning that the F-35B's lift was not evenly distributed as the aircraft was taking off.
That's not great.
For this reason, the yellow bow line had to be moved further inward, which reduced the maximum takeoff distance. As a result, during the first stage conversion to accommodate F-35Bs, the bow of JS Kaga was converted from a trapezoid shape to a rectangular shape, similar to
that
the
makes
Wasp
sense.
and America-class amphibious assault ships.
That makes sense. Yeah, okay.
With a rectangular-shaped deck, the bow line could be moved closer to the bow, which provided more space for takeoffs. This bow modification would be similarly applied to the Izumo destroyer during its second stage retrofits, which would happen by 2028. The second stage conversion would also include internal modifications inside Izumo's and Kaga's hangar bays to accommodate the F-35s. But how did the JMSDF trick politicians into buying an aircraft carrier?
Interpretation. Yet again.
Just like the color of this dress can be debated,
It's blue and black.
so can the interpretation
It's not debated. It's blue and black. Everyone else is fucking wrong. Fight me.
of the Japanese Constitution. Within the old interpretation of the Constitution,
But yeah, interpretation,
there was no
like I said.
necessity for Japan to have aircraft carriers, because under any defensive scenario, they would operate in proximity to Japanese islands. And this made carriers no more valuable than having air bases on land. The old interpretation of Article 9 is that JSDF can only be used for domestic security purposes. This interpretation prohibited Japan from invading other countries or settling international disputes using force. But the old interpretation changed in 2015 when Prime Minister Shinzo Abe
Shinzo Abe! In the immortal words of Shinzo Abe, have sex. Have families.
convinced the Supreme Court to include the right to collective self-defense. This means that if Japan's allies are engaged in a defensive war, it's in Japan's national security interest to assist allies with their defensive war by sending JMSDF forces on overseas deployments.
I can see both sides on why that would be important. You know, I can see why you'd be for it, and I can see why you'd be against it.
And this is how an aircraft
Just as it
carrier
is.
went from being an offensive weapon to a defensive one. As a result, on December 18, 2018, just 1 year after commissioning JS Kaga, the Japanese government approved to modify the two ships into de facto aircraft carriers. The criticism was hard, and not just from China. For example, the Japanese media perceived the new carriers as a step toward militarism. at least during one news conference with the defense minister.
One thing I will say, at least in my opinion, the Japanese people, at least the media especially, have gotten, I would say soft, but I don't necessarily mean soft. I feel like they're too scared, I guess, or something along those lines, of repeating the past, and they're overcompensating for it, I want to say. In the sense of, I don't know. I don't know exactly how to say it, but I do feel like they're overcompensating a little bit for what they want to do on their criticisms and shit.
Minister, half of the questions dealt with whether Izumo was an aircraft carrier or not. Nevertheless, the Japanese government still designated the ships as DDH, or helicopter-carrying destroyers. The Izumo-class ships are also sometimes tagged as multi-role destroyers, but Japan still refuses to call them for what they really are, aircraft carriers. But why does Japan need aircraft carriers to begin with? Besides helping their allies, the aircraft carriers are needed to protect Japan's navy. The Japanese government views Izumo being equipped with F-35Bs still as a tool for self-defense. They argue that in the age of modern cruise missiles, it is necessary to have fighter jets such as F-35s, because the average range of ship-killing missiles is in hundreds of miles, while the average range of defensive ship-launched anti-air missiles is only about 100 miles. So having aircraft such as F-35Bs is essential to defending the self-defense fleet, because the aircraft will be able to detect and destroy attacking ships before they can even launch their weapons. I should add that the JMSDF's decision to have carriers was not done in a vacuum. This is in response to China's military buildup as well as North Korea's.
And both their hostilities, yeah, it's very,
allows the defense
this was not done very lightly whatsoever. Do not think that. This was due to both the North Korea and China's military buildup and their hostility towards Japan. So it was not done lightly. There is a reason for why this was done.
To modernize and grow in order to ensure their national survival. So yes, the Izumo-class aircraft carriers, let's call them for what they are, combined with F-35Bs will allow Japan to conduct offensive operations for a defensive sea-controlled strategy. The best defense is a good offense. Surprisingly, the United States actually supports this Japanese initiative, because they see a close ally stepping up to invest into their defense beyond just the bare minimum.
Yeah. Because weirdly enough, the US doesn't like footing the bill for the world's security. If another country wants to help step up to the plate, we're all for it. We don't want to be the one having to foot the bill for everything. Like, I know I make jokes about, oh, that's the reason why our country is some odd $1 trillion in debt, is our defense budget. But we don't want that. You know?
As a result, over the past decade, the JMSDF has been modernizing its fleet and launching multiple new ships each year, which brings us to Japan's ship launch ceremonies. In the West,
that's
the
pretty
ships
fucking
are
cool.
christened by slamming a champagne bottle against the ship's hull. But this is risky, because if the bottle fails to break, it's a curse to a horrible shipwreck.
Damn, bitch, you having issues.
Yes, Japan is also superstitious, but they mitigate this risk by using a silver axe. For each ship, a silver axe is made that is thought to bring good luck and scare away evil spirits. The axe is used to cut the rope that holds the ship in place. The rope is connected to a giant paper sphere and a champagne bottle, which is slammed against the hull. As the rope is cut, the curtain covering the ship's name is removed. The paper sphere is broken, and a large amount of paper tape, confetti, and balloons fly out of the sphere and its surroundings. The paper sphere is meant to bless the birth of a new ship and its future prosperity. And that's the Japanese ship launch ceremony, where popping the sphere blesses the ship with good luck and pollutes.
Self-defense microplastics. I like that. I will say, between both ceremonies, I think I prefer theirs. Theirs seems a lot
The ocean
better
with
planned.
Self-defense microplastics.
Oh, that's foul. That's, if I didn't already like it, I would have liked it again. That was funny. Ending it with a fucking thing of Greta Thunberg. That's fucking funny. POV. Bro, it's a destroyer. Trust me. That would be pretty fucking funny. The Enterprise and the Kaga meeting up at Midway to carry out war games would be pretty fucking funny. It's not in there, so I'm not going to go searching for it. Yep, it's all... See, even Russia does it. It's all interpretation. Is it an aircraft carrier or not? Yes. You said it's only a helicopter carrier. Helicopters are aircraft, aren't they? I love that. That was on us. We set the bar too low. So fucking funny. Yet again, make sure you check this dude out. I fucking love this dude. I don't remember when I found him, but I love this dude. His shorts are very informative and short from what I remember. Just so fucking good. Make sure you check him out. The link will be down in the description. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.